candid conversations, unfiltered opinions, and humor with Abeg Vex Podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. I have Anthony Markey with me. Anthony, you share your name with an actor. You know that, right?
Well, his is Markey. I'm Markey.
Markey. Okay.
Yeah, so close.
I have Anthony Markey with me, and Anthony is going to talk about his podcast and everything Anthony. So Anthony is, I know a guy. So that's what we're going to talk about. His journey to that, establishing that business, I would say. Welcome, Anthony. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Well, we'll say good. I still got a little bit of a cold, so just shy of fantastic, but otherwise I can't complain. So I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. You woke up this morning, so you're doing fantastic, if you ask me.
Exactly.
Anthony, let's talk about I Know a Guy. What's the journey? What's the story behind that brand?
Yeah, so I've been self-employed for 7 years. My main focus on my business side requires a couple restrictions. I can only work with companies in the US, and I can only help groups that have 10 or more full-time W-2 employees. But the majority of time you spend networking, I don't know if you've spent any time networking like that, but most folks don't meet that requirement. I'm meeting a lot of awesome people that they were never going to be my clients, but I still wanted to be able to connect with them. I still wanted to be able to bring value and lead with service because I'm a big believer in helping people first without any sort of expectation otherwise. So I started thinking about different ways that I might be able to add value. And I kind of decided, you know what, I'm having all these meetings anyway, meeting tens of people a week. I might as well make these connections all about them, record it, and share it. So that's kind of where I Know a Guy started because I was really getting to know these folks. So it's I know a guy, I know a gal, whatever works. But I was meeting these people, and like I said, they're doing awesome things. And that was about 16 weeks ago. Today it was episode 77 that came out. I've had about another 40 or so recorded already, and another 50 or so in booking, because who knew entrepreneurs wanted to talk about themselves, right? So it's been a lot, but I can tell you without a doubt, it's the most fun thing I've ever done. So I'm leaning full into it, and I'm excited to see where it goes. It's already grown way more than I thought it would already.
I love that, and I'm so happy for you because there's nothing more fulfilling than starting something and seeing it do what surpass what you expected it to be. So yes, we've surpassed connection, recording, and all of that stuff. When it comes to actually people connecting and doing the thing, are they giving you that feedback when you introduce them or refer them? Or like how has that been? Where do they meet each other and then forget you? Or do they meet each other and then like, thanks, Anthony?
No, it's been way better than it was before, because before when I was meeting folks, I would try my best to make meaningful connections. But you know, after talking with somebody and a couple weeks go by or a month goes by, I'm not going to remember details all that well. I'm going to remember, you know, you should meet so-and-so and so-and-so because of a reason I can't put my finger on right now. But the way that I've been able to leverage doing this is I can just send somebody the episode and say, you know what, I think you would be a great introduction for Rudy or for Angela or whomever. Send in the episode, and then one of two things happen. They either go, you know what, I don't think they're a good fit for what I'm looking for, in which case I saved everybody time. I didn't make an introduction that they had to, you know, feel obligated to go to and then, you know, have the conversation. Didn't go anywhere. So I saved everybody time. But alternatively, and way more often since I've been doing it, is they go, hey, I love them. They're awesome. Can you please introduce me? In which case they start that meeting off instead of just being a traditional your very first meeting with somebody where, you know, it's kind of like a first date vibe where it's like, oh, what's your favorite color? No, it's a little more in depth because they know the basics already going in and they can ask the more deep questions, because I don't necessarily go too deep in my podcast. It's more about who you are, what you're doing, and what you love about it. So people can pick up on that passion, because that's who you're going to vibe with. That's who you're going to synergize with. So they go into that meeting already knowing that they like this person and they can ask more specific. So it's led to more meaningful connections quicker, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it perfect sense. So when it comes to what you do before the I Know a Guy podcast and meeting entrepreneurs in their specialties and their passion, let's talk about your business. Where was, you talked about it was very specific on your clientele, who you were serving in whatever geographical area, because somebody might be listening that may check off all that box. However, they've been looking for somebody like you to help them.
Yeah, so a bit about it, real high level, just so I don't bore everybody, is it's the B2B space. I help businesses find money or save money in ways that they don't know they have available to them. I have some relationships with different areas that people go out and they help businesses with. So I'm not even necessarily the expert on any one area, but I know a guy, right? So I inform and introduce where it's like, hey, based on, the size of your company or what you're going through or some of the heartburn you're facing, so and so and so and so, they have some good fixes. They've been able to help companies doing similar things. You should have that conversation and see what it looks like. So, I inform and say, hey, it looks like you have 30 employees. Traditionally, this company's been able to save you $600-ish a year per employee on their payroll taxes. It might be worth a 30-minute conversation. Let me facilitate that. So just finding connections with people that they otherwise wouldn't know about. Because a lot of business owners, me included, you don't have time to investigate a lot of these areas, and you don't have time to kind of go down rabbit holes to find potential savings that you might be stepping over. It's kind of a trope where everybody goes, Amazon doesn't pay taxes. And then that's as far into it as they look. They're not doing anything magic. They're taking advantage of the things that you don't know about because they have, the time and money to have teams of forensic CBAs or, accountants go in and find different niches or different areas that can help them. So I just try and fill that role and make introductions where it might be a benefit. And then, like I said, it kind of fit my brand with the I know a guy thing saying, hey, we've been able to help other people in similar areas do this because of X, Y, Z. Let me make that introduction. And then from there, let's see if it works.
Yeah. So that's great. So in your experience working in that industry, yes, your business is B2B. So, but even within the B2B ecosystem, we have the B2Bs on a smaller scale, and then we have the enterprise level B2Bs, right? So given that aspect with the enterprise, we have a lot of red tape. We have a lot of, figureheads to go through, as opposed to the smaller B2B, the decision makers and the shareholders kind of in the functional space. Which one would you say has been a more workable relationship or manageable relationship?
Yes. So companies that have 10 or more employees, I'm able to help. My wheelhouse, where I've been able to find the most success, and this might just be because there's more of them, is anywhere between 20 and 500 employees, because at that size, you're still able to meet the owners or C-suite executives. You're not having to go through 50 layers of red tape just to finally get to somebody that just retired and you got to start over. Not saying we can't help those, because we have and we do all the time. It's just the amount of companies out there that fall between that 20 and 500 are the majority of the companies in the country. So there's way more of them to help. But that's not to say that I can't help the bigger ones if, I bump into them. I love helping anybody and everybody at all sizes. I'm a big proponent of giving as much boosts to businesses as possible, whether you're small businesses. Like I said, the lion's share of the people I meet are solopreneurs. I want to help them as much as I can too. They just don't have a good fit traditionally, right? I had to find something else, and that's why I made this. But I just genuinely want to help businesses grow, because I'm a firm believer in the, the rising tide lifts all ships kind of mentality, because, the backbone of our country is small business. So my wheelhouse, probably 20 to 500, just like I said, because there's more of them.
So in even meeting those stakeholders and the C-suite managers or the C-suite directors, I should say, have you ever had an experience where somebody, yes, you presented what you can do, a guy or a few guys, and there's somebody that is a bit skeptical? What would you use as your, you're not in business of selling snake oil or convincing somebody otherwise to see value where they don't, right? So what is your one thing that maybe you do just to have an otherwise doubting or an exec not completely on board with implementing or looking at alternative in way to save money? Because companies do truly want to save money. However, some take a lot more convincing than others to trust.
No, as they should. You want to make sure that, if you're looking at something that you're vetting and making sure, touching and feeling and all that, the companies that I work with and the ones that I have relationships with that, I'm able to introduce to, they're not in the market of making like empty promises. They're the show, not tell. So they empirically show the people I'm working with how it works. So there's no like hidden smoke. It's not all like, oh, if we just did magic over here. No, it's based on this. They put together what it would be like a proposal or a study or whatever vertical they're helping them with. And they're saying, based on the stuff you provided of us, this is the outcome. Right. The number might vary if you give them like, a general census or a general whatever they're requiring, and then they can get hyper specific, the more specific of the input. Because like I said, it's not a guesstimate, it's all math with what they're doing. They're saying empirically, based on your size, the people that are qualifying or participating, or the different avenues we're able to help in, it's going to save you this much money, or it's going to help you in this much way. It's not something that people, I guess people can be skeptical about anything, but it's not something that's innately going to, give skepticism, because it's hard numbers. It's saying, here's this. It's exactly, go vet it all you want. It's going to work out the same way every time.
Right. I like that. Hard data works. It's quite easy to make a decision when you can actually see data, regardless how it skews, regardless of the outliers and variables. So coming back to the entrepreneurial side of things, what industry surprised you the most in basically meeting people and hearing about what they do?
Well, are you talking about on my business side or through the podcast and I Know a Guy side?
You know what? Let's talk about your business side first, then we'll go
Okay.
to the podcast side. Yes.
All right. One thing that surprised me, I guess, is dealing with people in the breweries, wineries, and like distillery space, because a lot of those people, they're doing awesome things, and it's one of my favorite places to have a conversation because you're able to sample their wares. But it's
Nice.
they're doing things they don't realize are really they're leaving money on the table in ways they don't realize. Let's just put it that way.
Wow.
So coming into it, I didn't know more than they would. But once you spend time looking at the details and seeing some proposals come back and seeing some studies come back, you're like, oh, there's a lot of them that could use this help, and none of them know about it. So it's people in that space are always my favorite ones to get introductions to, because first off, they're more than likely smaller. You have some bigger ones, but a lot of them are in that 20 employee range. So able to go in and find a lot of value to help them out. But then again, like I said, being able to meet them where they are and say, hey, what's your new beer this year, and taste it. That's kind of just a fun thing to do.
Right. And how about, since we're in the winery and brewery and distillery, let's talk about agriculture. Have you been able to help in that arena?
Well, I'm in Iowa, so we have agriculture everywhere. So yes, the answer is yes, very much so. A lot of them do similar things to where they don't realize, there's some inefficiencies that they should be looking at.
Yeah. So what is the one thing that you see that people overlook? Because I am very much interested in agriculture. I love to farm, garden. I grew up doing it, and I'm looking to actually get really into it in my adult productive years. So the one thing that I see in talking to people in the farming space, either well established on a bigger scale, smaller scale, is that especially in that bigger, like medium size to small, it is the people get skeptical about the involvement of, say, USDA, because I know there's a lot of grant and funding on that end, and people want to go at it themselves, and farming is not cheap. Right. So when you're talking about, your machineries, your livestock, maintaining the livestock, veterinary bills, feeding the livestock, right? So what is the one thing that if somebody actively has a farm, they're running a farm stand, out of their farm, or they have all season long, they have something coming out of their farm. What is the one thing that you would say to a potential farmer to look into for cost savings?
So there's three.
Thank you.
So there's three that I like a lot in my experience with farmers. One is a more obvious one, and a lot of them know about this. This isn't as much of a hidden thing, but just lowering energy costs, right? So if you're a farmer and you're running, here in Iowa, we have more hogs than people, right? So you have all these hog confinements and trying to be as efficient with those, because that's 24/7 energy going to that, right? You have to keep it up. And then, other farmers, when they're running their dryers or their after harvest, that's expensive. A lot of them are putting things like windmills up in their yard, things like that, right? So finding ways to save on the energy side is a big one. And like I said, a lot of them already understand that. Two is if they have employees, whether it be trying to find different ways of retaining their employees or helping them with better things like benefits or other things that are able to save them. It's a good avenue that a lot of them maybe don't consider. That's also parallels really well with like restaurants, because they have a higher turnovers, things like that, more seasonal. And three, different tax credits that they might be leaving on the table that we're able to help them find. So areas like that as well. So those are the three that I would probably lead with.
All right. So have you find with the farmers that you've spoken with or worked with working with, like, say, government agency, when it comes to, subsidizing or giving grants out to support their farms?
Yeah, so we mostly focus on one, the CPA firm that I like to represent. They're doing things with like the research and development tax credits, which a lot of
Got
farmers
it.
do every single year and they don't realize it. This parallels really well with like the wineries and breweries. They're making a new
Hmm.
product or they're enhancing a process, and they're very rarely doing the same thing twice. There's always a process of experimentation, and it's always
Right.
hard science. So we're able to go in, take a look at everything they're doing and say, hey, based on this, here's this much money that you should be allocating every year to it, because you're going to get this
Right.
much back.
And the farmers that actually implement that have actually seen benefit on that end, I suppose.
Absolutely.
Very good. So do you get like referral based on that? I would think so naturally if you're living in a predominantly farming community and somebody's benefited 1 year, as opposed to you actually going out and seeking out, potential clients. Do you get referral this way because somebody benefited the year before?
Absolutely. And none of the things that I'm doing is a one and done kind of situation. It's an every year they're saving the money. So yeah, it starts, with like one person maybe I got referred to through the podcast or just through a mutual referral relationship. And then, people, especially farmers, they like to talk to each other, right? So with small businesses, a lot of the time they're talking to each other on the golf course. Here in Iowa, the farmers are all talking to each other at Casey's, right? So they're all meeting for coffee in the morning. So absolutely, especially in the farming community.
Yeah. Tractor Supply, your local Tractor Supply.
Exactly.
Love it. I think Tractor Supply, you need to pay me for that. That's product placement. So
They should.
Love it. So yes, you're in Iowa. However, do you work with farmers around the country, or are you just focused on your immediate state?
No, national. My only two restrictions have to be in the U.S., right? I can't help farmers overseas, unfortunately. And then they have to have, at least for a couple of the verticals, 10 full-time W-2 employees or more. So
Okay.
that tends to be my only restriction. So any state, anywhere. There's the cat.
Got it.
Yeah.
Kitty.
I was trying to fend him off, but he sees I'm on a recording and he's like, I'm gonna appear.
He's like, Kitty, you're a guest.
Yeah. I was fending him off, but he decided now's his moment.
That's okay. Love it. So yeah, let's go to the small business or the founders entrepreneur side of thing. What has been your surprise in having the I Know a Guy podcast and meeting these founders and having them talk about themselves, their businesses and things of that nature?
The biggest surprise is how many of us are facing the same problems, regardless of size of the business, or we have similar heartburn. Because business is business really at its core. You might be a solopreneur coach, or you might be the CEO of a company of 100 people. We're having similar issues, right? And it's kind of interesting to see. And then a lot of us have a very similar mindset. We're all different, and we all have our own little, special sauce. But when I'm talking to entrepreneurs, at least the ones that I'm connecting with really, really well, we're either going through something similar or we're having similar mindsets. And I think that might just be the entrepreneur side anyway, kind of coming through, because there's definitely a lot of overlap, and there's themes that develop. So I don't know how it's been with you and your podcast, but you might have like 4 or 5 guests in a row where it's like you're kind of talking the same thing, and it's really interesting to kind of see other people say the same thing slightly differently. I always like to say the reason that I do what I do is because I'm a firm believer in the Zig Ziglar: help enough people get what they want, you'll get what you want. But that also goes back to the golden rule. It also goes back to reaping what you sow. It goes back to karma. It goes back to the go-giver. We're all noticing something that's just naturally true, and we've all tried to define it in our own special way, and innumerable amount of times over the last few thousand years. So it's awesome to see, because everybody's saying similar things in their own way, and it's awesome.
Absolutely. We're all fighting the same battle and we're all having the same struggle. True to what you said, in having this platform where people come on and talk about their businesses, what they're working on, what they've worked on or expanding, it's also helped me in my own journey as well. As a founder, talking to customers, understanding that this whole thing of believing so much in yourself that you go out and do something is an insanity that I share with other people, right? So I guess that, being an entrepreneur has that, that you've lost your mind, because why would you do this to yourself, right?
Yep.
Taking this on has been, it has its magical moments, but it has moments that you're like, goodness, what gives, right? And then you meet people that just totally remind you why you're doing this or why you started this in the first place. So that has been my experience. I don't know if you have the same experience or, something similar.
Absolutely. One of my favorite jokes about that is I became an entrepreneur because I wanted to work half days, but I had to pick which 12 hours I wanted to work, right? So, no, there's absolutely truth to that, where you might think going in, you're all bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and you get there and you're like, oh, this is rough. This is actually more tough. It's, in my opinion, a more rewarding kind of tough as opposed to, being a traditional W-2.
Yeah, it's a special kind of draining. It drains you in a satisfactory way, as opposed to draining you where you're like, okay, I'll wait for the check. It drains you in a way that you're like, okay, I sat like the days that my family, they felt this was funny yesterday. I don't know what was funny. So I'm looking to replace my chair. And we went out, to different places and we're testing out chairs. And one of the places that we went to was IKEA. And IKEA has this setup that like a live streaming setup. And that's part of what I want to introduce into my business. And I sat down in one of the chairs and I reclined and I was like raving about it. And one of my family members sat on it. And the comment was like, I don't want us to get this chair because if we get this chair, we might not see you again. So, it's rewarding that I'm spending time doing something that refreshes me, that I can see the growth. I'm meeting people. And that is the beautiful thing about, working for yourself and in a way that is not selfish, right? If you're really putting out good in the world, just like you said, the golden rule, karma, whatever it is, it comes back if you do it with pure intention and to help other people. And Anthony, I thank you for what you do. So yeah, what will be your advice? Because I asked for one for the farmers. You had 3. What would be your pointers to entrepreneurs either starting out, bootstrapping right now, growing their ventures, their business, their ideas, whatever it is? What is the 1 or 3 things you can say to them?
Yeah, there's an innumerable amount of things that I face, things that I've talked to people that have faced, things to consider. If you're just starting out and you're not exactly sure where, maybe you want to be an entrepreneur and you don't know which avenue, right? Because there's all kinds of opportunities out there. Network, talk to people, get used to talking with people, go on different networking events, look for mentorship, find out what people do, ask them questions, see what might be a good fit. You're kind of trying on clothes a little bit, right? So that's a part of what I do is I'm interviewing and talking to an eclectic group. They're all out there and a lot of people are doing really cool things that I didn't even know existed. So if you kind of go down that rabbit hole and you're talking to people and you're seeing what they're doing and you're able to pick their brain and ask questions, you're going to start noticing things that tend to attract you and then go down that, follow that path a bit. And then you'll see some things and you go, okay, this is for sure the area I want to go into. And then find mentorship, find somebody just to have a conversation with. It doesn't even have to be like a paid coach. Those exist and they're really valuable, but just somebody that's already doing it or where you are. And if they have courses or if they have books or if they just are willing to meet with you, have those conversations because, that's invaluable. You have 2 ways of, learning this stuff. 1, through coaching, mentorship, books, reading, that kind of stuff. And 2 is facing it head on, figuring it out as you go. One of those is way cheaper than the other. And it's actually paying for it, not trying to do it your own. Because when you trip and you fall on your face, it hurts. And it's going to happen no matter what. You're not going to have all your answers solved. You're going to have your own unique challenges that you're facing too. But a lot of the challenges you are going to face, people have already been through. Everybody has been through hundreds of times, and you can learn how to avoid those or how to optimize those. So spend some time doing that, but don't be so set in your ways that you never get started. I started my podcast, for example, with a gaming headset and a cheap webcam, right? Here I am with the same gaming headset and the cheap webcam, 77 episodes in, over 40 recorded, right? So don't let it stop you from getting started because you're going to learn the most by doing, but be sure to, investigate and look into it. So I don't know. Do you want more advice? I could keep going. I could go for a long time about this.
Keep going. Why not? Don't stop, Anthony.
Yeah. Well, then my second piece of advice would just be authentic and go into meetings wanting to understand who people are and getting to know them. Not about selling. Don't pitch slap somebody. There's 2 types of people you're going to remember in a meeting. 1, the people that come in and all they want to do is sell you, right? You're going to remember that person and you're going to remember not to talk to them again, right? And then the other side, the bell curve, right? You have the people that are pitch slapping you, you have your average person, you have the people that you really like. Those people are the ones that come in and say, hey, how can I help you? Right? Because then they're going to listen to you. They're going to ask you questions about what you're doing, and they're genuinely going to want to help. Those are the people that you're going to remember and that you're going to want to refer to. So be that person from the beginning. Get really good at leading with service. That's the entire reason that I started the I Know a Guy thing, because I genuinely want to help people. And I know that if I put enough good out there and do enough nice things for people, it's going to come back, right? So be that person in business. Don't be the commission breath, salesy, hard close, pitch slapping person out there. Be the person that genuinely wants to help people. That's probably actually my first piece of advice.
Thank you. And I think there's pressure to sell. There's pressure to get to know the person first, get to know, for lack of a better way to put it, understand their pain points. Because if you have a product or you have something that you're doing for them, if you come up with what you can do first, it's like, okay, but I may not even need that way. But if you start a conversation with me first to get to know me, what I need, what I may possibly need from you, then maybe you can lead with, or maybe I might have something for you. How about you try it out? I'll be more apt to listen to you than you jumping down my throat. So that was a great advice. And so what would you say to entrepreneurs, who are starting out about reinvention? Because we all start out with an idea of what we want something to be. Then sometimes you find that it doesn't quite fit what everybody wants. So how important is that strength? Because it really is a strength to be willing to pivot.
Absolutely. Be willing to pivot, be willing to change, be willing to start things over. I've been self-employed for 7 years. I've changed my, the basis of what I'm doing about 7 times, right? Once a year, I'm like, okay, I got to tweak this. I got to change this. I'm going to offer this now. I'm going to do this. The most recent version of that is doing the podcast. And what you're going to find is, as you're changing things, you're going to find different things that you're enjoying, different things that you're not. So as you're growing and as you're changing, you're just finding more of the things that you don't like about what you're doing, and you're pruning them. Be willing to let things go that are taking you down. There's things out there like the 80-20 rule, where 20% of your problems are taking up 80% of your time. Be willing to cut those. Optimize what you're doing, find efficiencies. The things that you're really loving to do, find ways to enhance that. Do more of it. There's millions of ways to be creative with entrepreneurship. You don't have to do the same thing that everybody else does. And you shouldn't. You should understand what they're doing and why they're doing it and the purpose behind, but then kind of define it for yourself and do something similar, but maybe just with your own twist. Because if you're going out there and you're wearing a suit and tie and you're having meetings like this and that's not you, and you're just doing that because you've seen somebody else do it, there's no reason for somebody to do business with you, because you're not going to be as good at that as the person that's already doing it. That's who they are. Be yourself, be authentic, go out there, be willing to make changes, be willing to make mistakes, learn from them, and like you said, pivot.
Yeah, don't get too married to an idea. It's going to be hard to coach you or teach you when you're so, this is it must be this way. No. Don't get too strung out on one idea, because in somebody teaching you and coaching you, they may actually suggest either addition or pruning, like you said, Anthony, of certain things based on their experience of the industry that you're trying to get into or what you're trying to do. Be teachable, be moldable, be coachable, and don't get too married to your idea, because you're going to turn off a lot of people who really want to help you. I've seen that full display, and it's not pretty. Yes, you have an idea. It's a great thing that you're willing to work on your idea. Also be willing to take feedback. So I like that you said that. That's great. Pruning. You're really a farm person, Anthony. Shows.
It's the Midwest in me. What can I say?
I love it.
I say things like, oh, so.
Yes. So this has been great. I went on. I know there's certain people that you did suggest, at least one person that you did suggest that I watch the episode, and I did. And for me, it was quite gratifying that I got to take my opinion off of that interaction, as opposed to you influencing it in a way of forcing an interaction. So your methodology there works. So what gives you the idea to do that, as opposed to, okay, I'm going to give you contact information, you have to reach out to this person, kind of a thing?
Yeah, it was kind of, I've had enough bad ones of those to go, okay, this isn't necessarily going to work for me. I've had people with really good intentions. Don't get me wrong. Everybody that's ever made an introduction for me to somebody else was doing it because in their mind they're like, you're an entrepreneur, you should meet. When, there's way more to that than that. So, going into meetings and saying, okay, this clearly isn't going to be a good meeting. I know for a fact, nothing against the person. We might not just vibe, right? Their personality might not mesh. They might have a really cool offer, but it's just not somebody that I'm going to collaborate with. Or you might get put into one of those situations where you are getting pitch slapped. You're like, wish I could have vetted this first. So being a part of those and then not wanting to do it to other people, because if I can go and I know who somebody is and they meet the criteria for what it takes to be a guest on my show, which isn't hard, but they're willing to meet that, then I'm comfortable introducing them to other people. So if I'm sending somebody an introduction, it's here's this person I think could be a good introduction for you. Let me know based on what they said here, because that's basically the first meeting. And then the person that I'm sending the introduction to, they can watch it at their leisure. So it's not like a time sensitive thing. The other person doesn't even know that I introduced them. So if the other person doesn't want to meet them, nobody's feelings are hurt, right? So it's really soft touches. And then that person, they can watch it and then make the determination on whether yay or nay. Because if it turns out no, now I know, okay, if I run into something like that again, I'm not going to make that kind of an introduction for them. It might be better for so-and-so. But if they do go, absolutely, that's great, then that meeting is better, right? It's not like I said, what's your favorite color? Where'd you grow up? It's I had a question. I watched your episode and I seen you say this and I thought the same thing. What do you think of this? And it's that deeper second meeting, which a lot of times you never even get to. A lot of times, if you're networking, you meet somebody one time, you might have the best intention. They're awesome. And then you never speak to them again, right? So it was just trying to find an efficient way around that to make it more meaningful connections and, being cognizant of other people's times and what they prefer without, hurting feelings. Because the last thing I want to do is go into a meeting that somebody just says, you two should meet, and then hate the meeting and go, we should never talk again. And then that everybody gets a bad taste in their mouth. So I don't want to do that.
Right. Makes sense. Everybody walks away with their dignity and, relationship preserved. You meet a lot of people, Anthony. Is there a particular industry that surprises you that it does exist or somebody's doing something in that arena?
Oh, I could give you a couple examples, like specific examples where somebody's doing something and I'm like, that's a brilliant idea. I've thought of this, but never thought about solving the problem. Like, this is a problem. A good example, and I'll name drop because they're doing awesome things. Her name was Emily French, her and her sister. They started something called Lemonade Standers. They're teaching kids in grade school how to run a business, how to be entrepreneurs, teaching them financial literacy. And I remember I've complained about it all. I'm like, man, I really wish I would have learned financial literacy or this stuff that I'm doing now and learning the hard way. I wish I would have learned that in school instead of just, well, you have two options. You're going to be homeless, you're going to go to college, right? That's the only two options I had growing up. And that's not true. So having alternatives, people coming in and talking about things like blue collar jobs that are out there or opening your new business or starting a business. It was amazing. So I was listening to them talk. I'm like, I need to interview you guys because I want to tell everybody about what you're doing. So there's things out there where it's like, I know this is a problem, but for whatever reason, it never got through my thick skull that somebody should solve this problem. So, and they did. And I'm like, okay, you guys are doing awesome. And that happens all the time. People will surprise you. So don't prejudge going into meetings. Be willing to hear them out. And I always like to say, be interested, not interesting. I'm here to ask you questions. If you have questions about me, that's cool too. I start getting itchy if I talk about myself for too long. So let's talk about you. So, but yeah, examples like that. I love meeting people doing awesome things.
That's cool. Who knew, right? Financial literacy at a young age. What? Planting that seed and watering it will actually yield something great. So I think for anybody listening to us, that's all it takes. You have that idea, put it out there, work towards it, because somebody else has that idea but hasn't acted on it. And if you know it's going to make a difference, if it's going to make a difference in anybody's life, whether you had experienced a bad experience and you wished it were different, please implement it, because we all need all those sparkling brains to, come up with the ideas to make all of our lives, livable, right? So, and if you have somebody that has come to you with an idea, please don't kill it. Don't say stupid, please. Please do not. It may be stupid to you, but it's not. So, Anthony, do you have anything to say about that?
No, nothing too in particular, because I've been fairly good about not, writing people off from the get-go. I've had some ideas that people said, and I go, you soft touch. You're not going to say, that's a dumb idea. You should probably give up and then,
Right.
leave, right? No. There's some things where, you're like, hey, you know what? This kind of already exists. You're trying to reinvent the wheel, or, hey, have you thought about maybe making a tweak or two here? And, they'll take it at, whatever. Sometimes people are really hyper fixated on it. They're not seeing the forest for the trees, right? So they're not seeing a glaring problem. So if you mention it nicely and you're actively trying to help them, don't belittle them. They're doing something. We should be encouraging that, where it's like, hey, you're trying to do something awesome. I don't necessarily think this is it, right? Because of this reason. But if you do this and then try and provide value, you're not there to tear down their ideas. You're trying to lift them up. If they're steering toward a wall, maybe see if you can correct them a little bit, right? So yeah, no.
But that's constructive, then. That's constructive. It's like, well, maybe if you veer a little bit to the left, right? That's constructive, not just like, that's dumb, that's stupid, It doesn't help anybody. Just please support. If it doesn't make sense to you, maybe it'll make sense to somebody else. Who knows? But this was a great conversation. Anthony, do you have any last, I call them golden nuggets, any golden nuggets for our listeners?
Yeah, meet somebody new every day. Like I said, people are going to surprise you. You don't know what you don't know. Be willing to listen and ask questions. The best way to talk about yourself, in my experience, is to ask people what they do and then don't interrupt them. What happens is when you start talking to somebody, a lot of us are used to having a couple minutes to talk about us. So we try and squeeze everything in. See what happens if you're talking to them and then you don't interrupt. You just start asking, genuine questions. You have no intention of talking about yourself. Your sole purpose is to talk to that person about who they are. See what happens at about 10 minutes. It's really funny to watch it because people will start to, well, I've never said that to anybody before, or they'll kind of run out of things to say because they're used to being cut off sooner than that. And you get them past that threshold, and now they're really interested in reciprocating. They're like, hey, you know what? I feel like I just talked a lot about me. I really want to know about you. And they're going to do the same courtesy for you. They're going to ask you questions. They're going to be engaged. And you're not just going to be another person that they talked at. You're going to be somebody that listened to them, and they're going to listen back. So if you want to connect and you want to network well, my biggest advice is genuinely listen to people. Let them engage and let them go as long as they want. I've had conversations where it was a 30-minute meeting, never even came up what I do, because what happens at the end of that is you're like, hey, I do have another meeting. I got to go. This has been great. And they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. I talked about myself the whole time. Can we meet again? I really want to know about you. In that meeting, they will pay more attention to you than anybody ever has in your life. So do that. That's my advice.
Sure. I wholeheartedly agree. The art of conversing is lost on us. I think it's just the way society is moving. We are very immediate gratification, get to the point, close-ended question kind of a thing, that sitting down and just, you go, let me listen to you, is something that we've lost. And it's the reason why we are more at odds with one another than, we're in agreement, because busy with the voices and the opinions in our heads. So thank you for that. I absolutely agree with that. So thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Anthony. Anthony Markey, not Mackie, Markey.
Yep.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for everything that you talked about, and thank you for doing good in the world. I really do appreciate you for that. And yes, anybody who's listening, if you have a business idea or you have a business and you would like to talk about your business, what you do, how you affect people, please. I Know a Guy podcast. I Know a Guy is on YouTube. Why am I talking about this? Anthony, why don't you tell people about you? And I Know a Guy podcast and everything. I Know a Guy, how they can, get in contact. Yeah.
The easiest way to find me is to go to my website. It's brand new. I have everything there. It's ikag.me. So, I Know a Guy abbreviated, ikag.me. I have all the episodes. I have all of it in one spot. You can go to YouTube, Spotify, all that stuff off of there. You can sign up for the newsletter. Basically, it's a daily newsletter where I make one introduction a day. Hey, I met this really cool person. Here's a 5-minute blog about what we talked about. So at your leisure, give it a read. If you want to know more, I have the full episode attached to it, so give it a listen. If you want to know more after that, reach out to them and have that conversation. So every day we're making introductions, and there's so many awesome people out there. Like I said before, meet one new person every single day. You might not find the Monday person's a good fit for you, but Tuesday could be, right? So sign up, subscribe, do all this stuff, but it's ikag.me. I'd love to have you there.
I love it. Thank you for that. And also for everybody, we're going to make sure we put all this information in the show notes. So if you forgot like a letter or something, it'll be there and you just click into it, get to the website, see the newsletter and see all the episodes. And also reach out to Anthony if you want to be a guest on his podcast, and he'll do what he needs to do to get you on there. So again, meet somebody new, Anthony said, every day, or meet somebody new any day, I guess, and get to know them and listen, be in the art of listening. If you must take note, take mental notes and ask your questions at a later time. Something come up. All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Take care of yourself and let us know what you think. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to Abeg Vex Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. It really helps us out. We'd love to hear your thoughts and continue the discussion. So join us on social media or drop us a message. Until next time, keep exploring, stay curious, and keep pushing the boundaries of your world.